If you're interested in flying drones beyond visual line of sight, you have probably heard of U-Space as a possible solution. If you're like me, you think of U-Space as the new modern way to manage manned and unmanned air traffic, like some sort of automated tower where machines rather than humans control all aircraft. But what is it really in detail, and will it work for the countryside? Let's find out. To begin with, what is the U in U-Space? Actually, I can't find an official definition, but unmanned seems to be a good guess. If it is, I'm however not sure it's a good name, as I guess we don't want to stop manned aviation from using the U-Space, the unmanned space, right? Maybe it doesn't mean anything, it's just a letter. Not a very good start for U-Space, right? Already the name itself is confusing. I have been reading the so-called easy access rules for U-Space, which I think is supposed to be an easier to read version of the EU Regulation 2021/664 on a regulatory framework for the U-Space. It might be easier, but I can't really say these 157 pages are that easy to read. But anyway, let's begin. What can we find in the easy access rules? Right off the bat, I find what everyone who wants to fly BVLOS in the countryside fears. U-Space is designed for cities, not the countryside. Or how should we otherwise interpret this? In certain areas, such as primarily in those with an expected large number of simultaneous operations of UAS or areas where UAS operate alongside manned aircraft, the safe, secure and efficient integration of UAS in the airspace necessitates the introduction of additional specific rules and procedures for their operations and the organizations involved in those operations, as well as a high degree of automation and digitalization. So this is what is causing a lot of frustration among Swedish regions and municipalities with a lot of rural areas. Flying drones can have massive positive effects on the possibility to live and do business in the countryside. Why? Because we have long distances and poor roads. The possibility to get eyes on anything or to deliver stuff quickly with drones is an amazing opportunity for the countryside. So everyone wants a solution that enables the safe and cost-effective use of the lower airspace for BVLOS drone flying. But the only proper solution we hear about is U-Space, which then seems to be primarily developed for cities. If there is no U-Space, what you have to do is to establish a D area, at least in Sweden, which takes forever to set up, in effect limits the number of drone operators in an area to one, and it's also a hassle for manned aviation. But maybe things are not so bad after all. Maybe you can actually use U-Space also in the countryside, even if it says in the regulations that it is developed for areas with a lot of US operations or a lot of interaction with manned aircraft. Let's dive into the details of that. But before we do that, first let's go through the basics of U-Space. The first thing to understand about U-Space is that it is primarily developed to keep drones from colliding with other drones. All of the information services included in a U-Space, which I will soon get to, are made for drones, not manned aircraft. The idea is not that manned aircraft should use U-Space services to achieve separation with drones. The aircraft entering a U-Space only have to be electronically visible in some way or other. The U-Space service provider must be able to detect any manned aircraft that enters the U-Space and then provide this information to the drone operators so that they can achieve separation from the manned aircraft. This is really a misunderstanding I have had, and I suspect that there might be more people that have the same misunderstanding. I think it has to do with all these U-Space illustrations we have been shown, where you see manned and unmanned aircraft and the U-Space information services in the same picture. But manned aircraft follow their own rules to achieve separation that they have had all the time, and the unmanned aircraft should just get out of the way. Okay, so what is then really U-Space? It's a zone where you can only operate your UAS if you are using the provided U-Space information services. There are 4 mandatory information services and 2 optional. The Network Identification Service keeps track of the identity of each drone and its position, altitude, speed, and heading. The Geo-Awareness Service communicates the defined geographical zone for the U-space and the current airspace constraints to the drone operator. The UAS Flight Authorization Service provides flight authorization for each individual flight. The Traffic Information Service provides information on position, altitude, speed, heading, and emergency status of manned and unmanned aircraft that may be in the proximity to the position or intended route of the UAS flight. UAS operators shall take the relevant action to avoid any collision hazard. So even if there is a flight authorization system that should keep drones separated, you still need to watch out for both manned and unmanned traffic and take action if needed. These are the 4 mandatory information services in the U-space. The 2 optional ones are Weather Service and Conformance Monitoring Service. The Conformance Monitoring Service keeps UAS operators informed if they break any rules in the U-space, and also alert everyone else in the U-space and other relevant parties about the non-conformance. There are 2 organizational bodies in the U-space, apart from the UAS operators themselves, the CISP and the USSP. The CISP, Common Information Service Provider, is one single national organization that keeps record of all U-spaces and their geographical zones and set of restrictions. The USSP, U-Space Service Provider, provides the 4 mandatory and 2 optional services I mentioned. Here I think there might be another common misunderstanding. I thought a USSP was someone providing the technical platform to deliver the information services, but it should rather be seen as the organization responsible for the U-Space who buys the technical platform from someone so that they can be the USSP. This makes a lot of sense because this means that, for example, a municipality or a region can set up a U-space and thereby gain control over who is using their airspace close to the ground. It makes a lot of sense to let regions and municipalities have this control. I think it is their airspace. Okay, now we know the basics of the U-space concept. Now back to our question. Could U-space be used in the countryside, not only over cities? Now it gets quite technical, but this is also really important if we want to understand if U-space can be used in the countryside. In the U-space regulation, we read, in order to allow UAS to safely operate alongside manned aircraft, specific coordination procedures and communication facilities between relevant air traffic service units, U-space service providers and UAS operators are necessary. These coordination procedures and communication facilities are laid down in Commission Implementing Regulation 2017/3731 as amended by Implementing Regulation 2021/6652. Alright, let's have a look at 2017/3731 then. Here we find a communication, navigation or surveillance services provider shall be able to demonstrate that its working methods and operating procedures are compliant with the standards of Annex 10 to the Chicago Convention on Aeronautical Telecommunications in the following versions as far as they are relevant to the provision of communication, navigation or surveillance services in the airspace concerned, and then there are references to several volumes. Okay, so let's then have a look at the Chicago Convention, Annex 10. Maybe we should not go through all the volumes. I think one is enough to get the idea. Let's have a look at volume 4. Here we find a lot of information and details about radar, collision avoidance systems, transponders, etc. If a U-space provider should have to fulfill everything stated in the Chicago Convention for their airspace, I can see why people are hesitant that U-space will work in the countryside, as you would have the same requirements to monitor your airspace as an airport has, with controlled airspace. It will be a challenge to provide radar surveillance and direct ADS-B in monitoring, as it is difficult to get radar coverage and radio reception from low-flying aircraft close to the ground in hilly areas without massive investments in radar stations and ADS-B in receivers. But after discussing this topic with someone working in the UTM field, it however seems like the word relevant can save the day here. You should comply with the standards in Annex 10 as far as they are relevant. For a U-space with a ceiling altitude limited to 120 meters above ground, this means that manned aircraft should normally not be here. A manned aircraft shall normally not operate closer to the ground than 500 feet, which is 152 meters. There are some exceptions, where the two most obvious ones are in airport control and information zones, and when rescue helicopters need to land close to the scene of an accident. And for the rare rescue helicopter landings and takeoffs at accident scenes, submitted flight plan ADS-B to satellite receiver and ADSL to cell phone tower tracking should be enough. Plus the helicopter can also see where all the drones in the area are with the U-space services. This means that it should not have to be relevant to have 100% radar ADS and ADS-B in coverage in the U-space to keep track of manned aircraft, as they should normally not be there. And when they are, there are sufficient means to keep track of them. When it comes to paragliders, a probable solution is that they need to stay in designated zones and that they need active inconspicuity, for example via their cell phones that they bring with them anyway. Okay, this was both an introduction to U-space and a bit of a deep dive into the question if U-space can be an option for the countryside. I guess we do not really know for certain yet, but there are several things that makes U-space look interesting in the countryside after all. One, those small words, as far as they are relevant, should mean that heavy investments in radar and ADS-B in receivers that many are afraid of are not necessary if there are very few manned aircraft in the U-space outside of airports, helipads and vertiports. 2. U-space flight authorization is a means for regions and municipalities to control their airspace from ground up to 120 meters, which I think makes a lot of sense. 3. U-space is the suggested solution from EASA from how to avoid mid-air collisions. 4. Everyone using the U-space has to get flight authorization. When you think about it, this should be a basic principle to keep the airspace up to 120 meters safe. A mandatory flight authorization automatically means that every airspace user will also be visible to all other users. For hobby drone users, this will not be a big undertaking. You just submit in an app when and where you will be flying, and in most cases you will get immediate approval. You will also always know if you're allowed to fly, which gives you peace of mind. For general aviation, following the 500 feet rules already in place, they will not have to get flight authorization, as they will not be entering the airspace other than in emergencies. But they will have to have active e-conspicuity so that they will be visible in emergencies. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.